I recreated Minecraft in 2D and managed to fit it entirely into this little thing, a QR code. All the game's code is contained in there. Even without internet, I can pull this QR code out of my pocket to play Minecraft. For example, this image is actually larger than what a QR code can store. It's exactly 168 times too big, and we want to make Minecraft. If we succeed, it's a real achievement and will spotlight an even more crucial internet issue. How can we make data take up as little space as possible? Here, we've really taken things to the extreme, but at the same time, you'll see, we're going to use some little known and really interesting techniques. If we're successful, you can try the game at the end by scanning the QR code. Before we start creating our game, we need to understand what a QR code is. You might not have noticed, but we can find them pretty much everywhere around us these days. Whether it's on a bar table, in the subway, on business cards, or even on your router, simply because it's so convenient. It lets you encode data such as a URL, text, or Wi-Fi password into an image of black and white squares. And since almost all phones have a built-in QR code reader, anyone can scan your image with their phone to get that information. It's convenient and it saves you from having to manually retype a website URL from a poster just to open it on your phone. The way it works, as you might guess, is very simple. You take some text, convert it into binary, which is the language of computers. This creates a sequence of zeros and ones, which we display as a grid of black and white squares. White for 0, black for 1. That's our QR code, though there are more details to the technology. For example, there are extra patterns in the corners. These patterns allow the camera to know which way to read the QR code. There's even a system that lets you read the QR code even if it's a little dirty. It's well thought out. In any case, QR code generators and readers are very common. The technology has become a standard. You can easily find them on the internet or even on the App Store, so creating a QR code isn't going to be a problem for us. Our main challenge is that people usually submit a URL, not a game, which is often in .exe with many files we can't encode directly, so I came up with a unique technique. I'm not making a program, I'm making a website instead. Be careful. I won't just create a site, put its link in a QR code and claim the game is there. That would be cheating. Instead, I'll use something like classic.minecraft.net as the QR code URL. It's an official old Minecraft version you can play online. So yes, we could scan and play Minecraft. This shows a website can be a game, but that's not our goal. We want the game embedded directly in the QR code, so it works without internet access. To do this, we need to fit the website's code into the QR code. Without my technique, we'd face the same problem. A website has multiple files, making direct encoding impossible unless we use a Linksite instead. A Linksite is a functional website where all the code is stored directly in the URL itself. Yes, it's possible. I found this site that explains what a Linksite is, and paradoxically, it's actually a Linksite itself. That's really impressive. So here, well, okay, it's a normal URL. But look here, you can see the site's URL as a Linksite, a URL that's really weird and especially very long, and if I copy and paste it into a text file, you can see that it's huge. And yet, all this code makes up a URL that the browser can open. To show you this, I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi and paste it into my browser. And there you go, it opens the site in question. It's the same site as before, but you can see that the URL is completely different. There's no need for a server. Okay, so it's not a game yet, but you can easily add JavaScript and create a real game with this technique. And that's exactly what we're going to start doing. Just a quick note. You've likely already seen Matt Cass's video from 5 years ago when he did this challenge. The original idea is his. Just so you know, we won't discuss the same thing since we use different strategies. The first thing I wanted to create was a little menu for the game. That way, you scan the QR code and you get an explanation of the concept. Plus, making a menu is super easy in web languages. To create a button, you just have to use a simple HTML button tag. For obvious space reasons, our Minecraft will be in 2D, kind of like Terraria if you know it. What I've removed so far represents this much in bytes. And you should know that a QR code can only contain 2,953 bytes. Just with this menu, we're almost at the limit. Yeah, it's tight. Well, obviously, I suspected this, and that's why I have a lot of techniques to try out. Some of them will be a bit counterintuitive, you'll see. But the first and most obvious one is to simplify the menu a little bit. We're going to remove some of the unnecessary stuff, use abbreviations, make sure it doesn't take up too much space, but still stays functional. So we go from this menu to this one. Honestly, it's fine. It's not that ugly and it still works. I can't wait for you to rate the game's graphics at the end of the video. We've just started, and we're already starting to get a glimpse of the main issue of this video, which is the space limitation. We've implemented terrain generation in our player, but we need to understand why this limitation exists. Where does it come from? Because it's frustrating. Some of you might be thinking, Johan, you said it was just black and white squares. Why can't we just create a giant QR code to store infinite data? Others have wondered the same, but it's not that simple. QR codes rely on a shared standard. The idea is that anyone who builds a QR code generator or reader knows what rules to follow so that it works the same everywhere, from one phone to another, from one website to another. And the designers noticed that if a QR code is too big, it becomes difficult or even impossible to scan with some phones. The same people might then say, well, QR codes are actually useless. They don't work. That's why, for the sake of standardization, they set a size limit. In version 40, which is the most common, that corresponds to a grid of 177 by 177. That comes out to 2,953 bytes, or 2.95 kilobytes, if that makes more sense to you. To really visualize it, I'll show you on the screen the size of different existing elements. That gives you a bit of a comparison scale. And for example, you can see the size of the real Minecraft game, which is around 2 to 3 gigabytes. Honestly, for a game, that's really not much. And based on that, it means we'll have to create a game that's 1,000,000 times smaller than the real game. That's crazy. Well, there is a first idea that came to me quite naturally. Technically, nothing prevents me from altering a QR code generator's code to remove the limit. However, if I do that, standard QR code readers, like those on your phone, online, or in the App Store, couldn't scan my QR code. I would also have to create my own QR code reader, which completely breaks the concept. I kept working on the game. Now, the play button takes us to a map. It's flat for now, but we'll build a real generation system soon. Here's another technique I used. The game is colorful, with textures like leaves, grass, and stone. And yet I didn't use any images to make these textures. I used emojis, simply because a dirt texture that's just 16 by 16 pixels already takes up 841 bytes. That's way too much. In comparison, an emoji only takes up 4 bytes. There's no need to store the emoji image. Your device already has all the emojis stored in its system. Next, we're going to add a blue sky to the game. Well, we're trying to make it more immersive. As usual, we have a little trick to save space. It's pretty symbolic, but instead of using a standard hexadecimal to store the color, we used a shortened hexadecimal. That means we go from this to just this, in 3 characters. The browser sees it the same way. I see people in the back wondering, is he really fussing over 3 characters? Yes. I promise you that in the end, we'll be down to just 3 characters. It's a real challenge. The game is starting to take shape, we can move around and jump, and the map is infinite. So we can't really call it a game yet, because there's nothing fun about it. We're missing like a terrain generation system, a system to place or break blocks. If we have enough space, maybe a mob or inventory system. We'll see how far we can go. Let's check the project's current size out of curiosity. We've already exceeded the limit. I expected that, but it's not a big deal yet. We'll use a common technique every website uses to shrink size and speed up loading. You may have noticed I code carefully to save space. And if there's one powerful technique to really compress code, it's using a compression algorithm. That's what we call a code minifier. A website may seem like a single code file, but it's actually built from 3 different languages. There's HTML code, especially for the menu, CSS code to handle the style, that is the zoom level, the colors, and most importantly, JavaScript code to manage all the game logic. Well, for each of these languages, you need to use a minimizer that corresponds to that language. Many are available online. For example, I found Cursor for JavaScript, HTML min for HTML, and CSS compressor for CSS. These tools help websites load faster. So, since it's really annoying to have to run the code one by one on each file and then reassemble everything, I actually wrote a Python script myself that brings all these tools together. And now, if I run this command, all my code is compressed. The idea is that as soon as the minifiers have removed everything that's not essential for the program to run, it doesn't affect its behavior. It will process all the code, removing spaces, line breaks, comments, and shortening variable names to A, B, or C, while also simplifying math expressions. Thanks to all that, we went from this code to another that's unreadable for humans, but just as readable for machines. Size-wise, we moved from this weight to that weight, which is interesting. We've saved a lot of space, and now we can continue our game. We can add more features, like this little piece of code, for example. All the mathematical expressions you see actually allow us to create a terrain generation system. Each time we launch our game, it now generates a random terrain, making it more immersive. You can see the Minecraft-like concept. As always, we add features using various techniques. For example, this may not make sense to everyone, but by using let instead of const to define a variable, we save 2 characters. It's even funnier if we need to use the number pi. Well, we're not going to use math.pi like everyone else. We're going to write 3 very rough approximations of the number pi. Physicists, please don't get mad at me, but it kind of works. Or, one last little technical detail, if I need to use a browser function that's a bit long, like this one we often use, request animation frame, well, instead of writing it out every time, I'm going to define it in a variable. And it's this variable that I'll use each time. That saves a lot of space. Like, look here. If I check how much space it takes once it's minified with this system, it looks like this. We're slowly but surely getting closer to the limit, but there's still one fundamental thing to add to make it at least a little fun. That's the system for placing and destroying blocks. Well, we struggled. We added that. Now you can break blocks with left click and place them with right click like in Minecraft. You can also change which block you place with the numeric keypad keys. And thanks to that, you can create real constructions, in quotes, maybe even a house. Even jumps, why not? I wanted to make a save system that would record the game's content in the URL. Spoiler, it wasn't possible. We hit the storage limit, like really hit it. It might look simple in the video because I'm summarizing and showing you how we managed to do things, but every time we test combination after combination, we see how much space it takes, we have to re-optimize and so on. Honestly, I can tell you, we can't add anything else, and at the same time, it's really an achievement. I mean, the guy is really patting himself on the back. We fit the entire game into this code. Maybe only nerds like me will appreciate it, but I find it fascinating. I'll see how my community reacts when I drop this QR code in my Discord and ping all 15,000 members without any explanation. But first, we need to convert our code into a QR code. I really wanted to make a quick comparison to show you that this experiment of mine isn't that silly. The size of websites, games, software, and apps is something fundamental in computer science. First of all, the most obvious thing is that something that's lighter is naturally faster to open or download. For a website, this helps avoid losing users or even appear higher in search engines like Google. Because yes, Google pays attention to how long your site takes to load to consider it a quality site. And finally, the second issue is environmental. Every kilobyte of a program or website adds data that travels through servers and uses energy. If we reduce the size of a site by just 1 kilobyte, for a site that has billions of loads per day, like YouTube or Instagram, we would save a terabyte of bandwidth, just reduced by 1 kilobyte. And that could represent hundreds of kilowatt hours saved with the servers or the network routers. Riven goes even further. Imagine if we could make the mini-flower technology 10 times more efficient. Since everyone online uses them, saving data globally is significant. It's a real issue, especially as most tools are open source and benefit everyone. That's the end of my aside. I found this perspective interesting. Afterwards, you might think that I'm trying to give meaning to a project that, let's be honest, isn't very useful. That might be just as true. The code for our game goes from this to this once it's minified. Next, we need to add these little elements that will allow us to turn it into a Linksite. And so all of this is now a single URL, a single very large URL. And then, we're simply going to use a standard QR code generator, which we can find online, and there you go, that gives us our final QR code. I wrote a little message on my Discord with a QR code and an Evrian. I'm ready to post. I just need to warn you about a few limitations that make this not perfect, unfortunately. If I scan the QR code, the reader only shows text. It doesn't recognize URLs or open them in the browser due to security restrictions. For links, we have to copy and paste them, but after that it's easy. I do Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V, and there you go. The site loads, and it's even worse with the default QR code reader on the iPhone because it can't even interpret it. It doesn't even know what to show you. It shows nothing. And finally, the second and last limitation is that our game isn't playable on mobile. Well, it is, but you won't be able to move around. The movement system, for example, is based on the keyboard. We had to make some choices. I agree. It's a shame, but I really wanted a playable 2D Minecraft, so we made that sacrifice. Let's see how people react on my Discord. I sent the message and can't wait to see how fast they notice. A month ago, just for fun, we organized a little building contest in this game on my Discord. If you're interested, the link is in the description. So if you want to try the game, you can scan this QR code. I'll also put it in the description. And just so you know, you absolutely need a PC. Plug the QR code into an online reader like this. Hope you learned something. This is Awen. See you.